Well, good evening, folks. How you going? Hope you've had a bloody great weekend. It's been a big weekend. All sorts of good news and interesting things have been coming out from all around the country. If you're a Telegram watcher, you've probably been glued to it. We know there is a battle going on at the moment, even though some people cannot understand that war does not always operate on a kinetic level. Let's put it that way. War can happen in a variety of different ways, and we are certainly in a battle. A battle of gargantuan proportions. Tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of different things. But the first point tonight, I think, is we've been talking recently a bit about the Durham Report. If you haven't availed yourself of a read yet, it can be a bit of a long read. It's 316 pages long, but it is very valuable information to learn about the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, amongst other things. To help me go through it tonight, I've brought in the old pirate himself, who's very good at enunciating in these sorts of things. Good evening, John Wilson. How are you, mate?
Good evening, Carl, and good evening to all your viewers.
Alexander Downer is not fondly remembered as an Australian politician. After his time in the Parliament, he was sent to the UK to become the Australian ambassador over there, and he was there for some time. During that period, in 2016, in May of 2016, he was invited out to have a couple of drinks with a bloke called George Papadopoulos. From that meeting, numerous things emanated, including a couple of memos back to Australia, and following that, a formal memo off to the FBI. That memo was the instigation for the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into Donald Trump in 2016, and that investigation pretty much went for his entire presidency, along with two impeachment investigations that were run alongside of that. John, at the time all this happened, we were, well, I don't know about you, but I was a bit incredulous about Alexander Downer's involvement. I thought the only reason he was sent back to the UK was so he could go and relive a few of his halcyon days with his public schoolboy friends over there. Fishnet stockings and high heels notwithstanding. But I've got the Durham Report here, and I want to go through some of it here. So let me just read a bit here. I've highlighted some parts. The FBI opened the Crossfire Hurricane investigation as a full counterintelligence investigation. Now, that's not the usual process. The usual process with the FBI is that they will open a preliminary investigation and check the bona fides of the facts that they have before they go into a full-blown one, but that didn't happen. The starting point for the officer's inquiry was to examine what information was known or available to the FBI about any such ties as of the 31st of July 2016, prior to the opening of Crossfire Hurricane. Now, the meeting that we're talking about with Downer happened in May, but it took them a couple of months to forward this information through. It actually wound up going through to the Yanks on the 26th of July, and on the 31st, Crossfire Hurricane was started. The information used to predicate Crossfire Hurricane. Well, in March 2016, the Trump campaign identified George Papadopoulos as a foreign policy advisor for Trump. At the time of his appointment, Papadopoulos was employed in the United Kingdom at a London Centre for International Law Practice, and among some of his acquaintances in London was a diplomat from another country. They refer to this diplomat as Foreign Government 1, Diplomat 1. Foreign Government 1 and Diplomat 1 were familiar with an Australian Diplomat 1. On May 6th, by pre-arrangement, Foreign Government and the diplomat introduced Papadopoulos to the Australian diplomat. On May 10th, they had another chat, and they were joined by the Australian High Commissioner, Alexander Downer. Now, the Australian diplomats were interested in meeting with Papadopoulos because of his role in the Trump campaign. Over 2 months later, from the US Embassy in London, certain information diplomats had memorialised at or around the time of the meetings with Papadopoulos. The next day, the State Department passed this information on to the FBI's legal attaché in London. Paragraph 5 was the name given to the raw information provided by the Australian government and included in the May 16 cable that documented the diplomats' encounters with Papadopoulos. Paragraph 5 is an abstract from the cable and was quoted verbatim in the Crossfire Hurricane opening. It states in its entirety, and this is paragraph 5, Mr. Papadopoulos was unsurprisingly confident that Mr. Trump could win the election. He commented that the Clintons had a lot of baggage and suggested the Trump team had plenty of material to use in its campaign. He also suggested the Trump team had received some kind of suggestion from Russia that it could assist this process with anonymous releases of information during the campaign that would be damaging to Mrs. Clinton and President Obama. It was unclear whether he or the Russians were referring to material acquired publicly or through other means. It was also unclear how Mr. Trump's team reacted to the offer. John, this seems like a fairly flimsy reason to write a note to the FBI, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, well, what it smells of is that one that from the Australian diplomatic side of things, which is Alexander Downer, that there was a real they were on a mission, right? They were on a mission to find out anything that was going on inside of the Trump camp, right? That's the first thing. I mean, this was not a meeting by accident. This was an intelligence gathering exercise. That's the first thing. So it wasn't just a casual beer in the pub. It may have been for George Papadopoulos, but it certainly was not for Alexander Downer. This was an intelligence gathering activity for Downer. That's the first thing. The second thing is it was a nothing burger. It was a nothing burger, right? In terms of the exact information that George Papadopoulos passed on over a beer, and you've got to understand, and I've knocked around with a lot of diplomats in my career. They do this stuff day in, day out. I mean, it's a nothing burger. It's almost just a bit of gossip. Okay, that was passed on in the heat of an election, right? Nothing unusual about that. But yet, it was captured, it was reported, and then formalised and put into documentations, right, and sent over by our government bureaucracy unchecked. I mean, none of this stuff was, had any sort of veracity applied to it, right? It was passed on to the Americans, right? A nothing burger was passed on to the Americans, which then the American law enforcement and Justice Department and others then, and Congress, the political machinery, the American body politic, then started a massive campaign to first of all destabilize President Trump and then to bring him down. Now that's a big leap from what Alexander Downer goes into an intelligence gathering exercise. He was told virtually a nothing burger. Now, how do we know it's a nothing burger, Carl? I mean, you've read the report the same as I. It's because the British, their CGHQ, MI5, MI6, their intelligence agencies outright came out and said it. They said, "Is this all you fucking got? Is this it?"
Yeah. I think that's the actual quote too. Is this all you fucking got? Quote. Yeah.
Yes, and they said this is thin. And then when they tried to set up one of Trump's other campaign people, I've just forgotten the chappie's name off the top of my head, but they tried to set him up. They taped him and all the rest of it.
Carter Page.
That's Carter Page. And Carter Page, after that, the British intelligence agencies then said, listen, you put a lot of bloody work in here to get him to say fucking nothing. There was nothing, Yeah. So there was nothing for any of this to go on from the get-go, but yet it seemed to me two things. One was that from the Australian perspective and Alexander Downer, they were very keen to sniff out anything that smelt Russian. And two, from the Hillary Clinton team and the law enforcement team, they were also very, very keen to tie anything they could to Russian to Trump. And what that says to me, as we know in the left and the politics, they project. So if there was any skullduggery going on between the Russians and Trump, it wasn't Trump at all. It was indeed the people making the accusations. I mean, this is unbelievable. To take how this has started is unbelievable, and then how it was carried through, how the whole investigations and prosecutions were executed against President Trump is unbelievable. And it's established some pretty clear tactics that law enforcement agencies in the USA are willing to employ, and
Ignore.
that's a psyop. Yeah, it's a psyop, right?
Yeah.
That's what they did. And so it begs the questions, are the Australian police, law enforcement and intelligence agencies, ASIO, are they capable of the same sort of misconduct?
Yeah. Well, I think we need to be able to get a little bit more investigation happening in that regard. And I'll be honest with you, at this juncture, I find it difficult to see that we're going to get that coming under a Freedom of Information Act request. This is the document that Downer sent to Australia from London. Now, this is UK-US Donald Trump views on Trump's advisor. You can see date and time it was transmitted, routine information only. Now, you would think if they didn't have too much to hide here, there'd be a bit of information. According to Donald Trump's foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, nothing. On May 10, High Commissioner Downer, accompanied by no one, met with Donald Trump's foreign policy advisor, Papadopoulos, to discuss Trump's foreign policy. Who is George? That's their little blurb on him. All this is redacted. All this is redacted. All of this is redacted. Everything on here is redacted. What is the Australian government trying to hide? That would be my question. Why won't they show us what was inside that initial communique? We've got the paragraph 5, but clearly there was more than 5 paragraphs, or at least 4 more. Be very interested to learn about those as well, wouldn't you, John?
Absolutely, Carl. Look, does it get any bigger? The taking down of an elected American president, one of our allies for, well over half a century. We've fought shoulder to shoulder with the Americans in wars and other conflicts. We've been great friends of the Americans for a long, long time now. And does it get any bigger than the actual participation in trying to pull down an American president?
No.
No.
I don't think so. There are a lot of people talking about the Durham Report now, folks. If you want to go and read it, it's available on the VoF HQ website. Just go to the criminal trial tab, click on that, and it's the one at the top of the pile there. You can download it and have a look at it for yourself. What I will do is I'll bring it back up again and show you a few more bits. Now, a lot of people are reacting to that Freedom of Information request. Now, these things here, folks, what you'll find, and if you're going and reading the Durham Report, you'll find this line occasionally, at, halfway through a page or down the bottom of it. Inside it, you'll find further details and further references to things that are supplied. So that document that I showed you that is redacted is actually this DFAT government link here. And you can go, if you are going to read this report, there are numerous links, both Australian, not so many Australian, but certainly a lot of American links that you can go in and check in. The FBI, John, seemed to take this information from Downer and not investigate it in any way, shape or form. They used the information received on the 26th of July, and Peter Strzok was the agent in charge, who not only did the draft for this investigation, but is the one who wrote the order and committed it, who brought Crossfire Hurricane into existence. Now, one of the interesting things for me at the time, John, was the name Crossfire Hurricane. Does that ring a bell to you at all?
No, not off the top of my head, but draw some pictures for me.
So the only other time I could ever think of Crossfire Hurricane being together in a sentence or anything is in a Bob Dylan song. And that Bob Dylan song is about a black American boxer who was pulled over by some white American police officers. They accused him of raping, I think it was, and murdering a white girl. And they put him in jail.
Hurricane Reuben Carter.
That's the one. Hurricane Reuben Carter, a dynamite boxer. He spent 38 years, I think it was, in jail. It might have been over that, before he was found innocent. Now, what sort of an appeals process have they got where it takes 38 years to find you innocent? But Crossfire Hurricane, the words Crossfire Hurricane are mentioned in that Bob Dylan song. And that's all about an FBI investigation that stitched somebody up. They're always telling us what they're doing, folks. Always telling us what they're doing. And it was in the friggin' name, Crossfire Hurricane. So,
there's symbolism being used everywhere. It's all over being used in this war. Symbolism, and they hide things in our faces in clear sight. That's what they do. They're good at it.
yeah. Why people are asking, why would Downer want to inject himself into this situation, do you think?
Well, I think his relationship with Hillary Clinton and the whole Clinton, crime family was he was inextricably linked, and that's all public knowledge. I mean, everyone could see that. And the other is, I think Alexander was absolutely dumbfucked that Trump won. I mean, they all thought absolutely she was going to win. Right. So, I think Downer, his motivations were, I'm a friend of Hillary's and I'm not a friend of Trump's. And, if I can, throw a little bit of petrol onto the fire, he's ended up throwing like a nuclear bomb on the fire, because this is a hell of an outcome that's come over just a couple of beers, mate, a couple of lousy beers and a conversation that really disclosed bloody nothing, and Downer has turned that into the taking down of an American president. It doesn't get any bigger and it doesn't get any uglier than this. The follow-on questions is just how deep are the Australian intelligence agencies, the Australian law enforcement, and the Australian diplomatic Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. How far are they into this? And I guess the other thing that's got to be asked is that given the English intelligence agencies, quote, are saying this is bullshit, we're not having it, we're not touching this, right? Why didn't the Australians do the same? Why didn't the Australian, intelligence agencies, police, foreign affairs, why didn't they can all of this, distance ourselves? Why did we sit back for several years and say nothing and let the totally illegal and slimy way they tried to pull Trump down and say nothing and just look the other way and close their mouth? Why?
And why do they expect to be able to get away with it, John?
Well, they're not this round. They're not. Look, I've said this publicly before, but I don't think the world has ever seen a man like Donald Trump and his team of people that are backing him up, which clearly now is people with military capabilities, whoever that may well be, right? But military capabilities. He's one tough hombre, Donald Trump, and he's one smart hombre, and he's now caught the bloody lot of them. They're in deep shit. And they're not going to get away with it this time, I'm afraid.
So Trump is going into court tomorrow. Be tomorrow night, I think, our time, or very early Wednesday morning. He's going into the Miami court to front 37 charges that the criminal... it's actually a civil case. It's not even a criminal case, I think, from memory. So... the interesting thing that people may not be aware of here, I think, is that Donald Trump is going to front a judge that he appointed in Miami. Now, that's not to say he's going to get an easy ride, but at least you've got to think he's got a chance of getting a fair hearing, at least, rather than somebody who's been appointed by the Democrats. The other interesting thing for me is that it will be the last day that Donald Trump is 76. He turns 77 on Wednesday. Now, if you look at his age, 76, Wednesday, American time, Tuesday, American time, will be the last time that Barron Trump's age and Donald Trump's age put together add up to 1776. Now, I am not a gematria follower. I'm useless when it comes to numbers, but I have been reading a lot about the gematria that's going on at the moment. There is a lot of number work going on from a lot of people. John, are you any more over that than me?
I'm like you, mate. I failed math. Look. Let me just say this. Although I don't understand the language of gematria, and I'm not a numbers person, I know and recognise its importance. Right, I recognise its importance, and I recognise its role that it's been playing right throughout this war for humanity. I mean, as I said, symbolism is being used everywhere in this war, right? The other thing that is lining up is this gematria. So, these are big components in this war, yes. And I wish I did understand it a lot better.
Yeah, you and me both. I was trying to follow along with some of the readings of it the other day, and I simply cannot make the links in my head to be able to see it. But that doesn't mean I discount it completely. There are so many people who have come out and shown with great clarity just how good gematria in fact can be. So if there is any practitioners amongst us, please let me know. Love to hear from you. Something else that I guess is on my mind a little bit, John, given that all this seems to be happening this week. Trump is going into court. The odds of him being pushed forward for a further trial, I don't think are great. But the precedent has been set. Now, any former president can be brought to court for any perceived crime they may have committed. Have the Democrats been a bit too smart for themselves here?
Oh, they're in deep shit, mate. Look, you don't have to be a smart cookie to sort of see where this is going to end up. Just look at President Trump's history up to date. Every single time they have tried to corner him with nonsense, right, with whether it's impeachment or whether it's criminal charges or whether it's the Mueller investigation or anything else, every single one of them has blown up in the Democrats' face, and it's ended up being a boomerang, which has come back to hit them on the head and not him. I would expect this to be exactly the same. President Trump is very, very good at laying traps, and Democrats are demonstrating how good they are at walking into those traps.
Absolutely blindly walking into them. And thank God for that. Thank God for that. How much harder would this be if they were actually half smart?
You've got it. You've got it. I mean, what that man's been up against, and I know he's got a team of people, but what the forces that man has been up against and had to overcome is just mind-blowing stuff, mate. I've learned so much in the last 3-4 years. I never thought that I'd learn in my life after watching how he's handled himself through all this. And I don't know how. It's same as Ricardo Bossi, mate. I don't know how he keeps his cool and looks so professional, given all the bullshit that he cops on a day-to-day basis. And there's others as well. You too, Carl. I don't know how you're so handsome.
Well, I hide it under all these layers of clothes. Living in Queensland, freezing my ass off. You mentioned the Bosey camp. I don't know if it was Friday or over the weekend. A video came out, some stock footage of some Black Hawk helicopters landing somewhere obscure. Some interestingly shot military-clad feet pulling up in a military lookalike ute, walking up a step. Ricardo getting himself all dressed up and doing the tie, adjusting the poppy, and then walking out, getting into this army vehicle and directioning off. We're off. Now, within a day or so, we get a meeting. We get a message comes out that the big news is that Ricardo Bosey has been appointed Chief Commander for Australia under Section 51 of our Constitution, and that Caroline Kennedy has been appointed the Governor General. People got a bit excited about all this. Now, can I just point out, the Bosey video was a made-up video, all right? Okay? It's stock footage. Special forces do not fly Black Hawk helicopters at the moment. They want to, but they don't. Instead, they've got this piece of shit called an MRH-90 they're flying.
That's right.
Not
That's
Black
right.
Hawks.
Yep.
The Ute, the vehicle that was used. So all these people are saying, oh, it was a real military vehicle. No, it fucking was. Well, it was in about 1969.
Yeah,
all right?
Yeah.
It's an army surplus vehicle that somebody owns. Okay.
Yeah, they drive Bushmasters. They drive Bushmasters now. That's what they drive.
If he was going to be picked up, it wouldn't be in a soft-sided Ute in khaki colours. It would probably be in a limo. Not a big stretch or anything flash, but it would be a government car. All right? Yeah. It would be a government car that picks him up. Please, people, do not go and get so excited about all of this. And there is no truth, absolutely no truth, that Ricardo has been made Chief Commander of Australia and Caroline Kennedy has been made our Governor General. That alone should point out to people. I mean, how the hell?
It's a great story. It's a great story, it captured the imagination of everyone. It's been fully denied and corrected by the Ricardo Bossi people himself. And look, I spoke to Ricardo's wife earlier today, Rhiannon, on a couple of other issues of common interest, and she didn't mention that Ricardo was the boss or anything to me. So I don't think there's anything in it.
No, I don't either. Just give me a moment here. I've brought up something I didn't mean to bring up, and it's making a huge bloody noise. So I apologise. I'm going to play a little video here shortly that I want to try and see whether or not people are aware of it all, because this is truly frightening. So look, Ricardo has not been appointed anything at this point in time, as far as I'm aware. He and Rhiannon and the rest of the A1 team are flogging their ass off on Telegram 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to keep us apprised of what's going on in the rest of the world, and God for it.
Carl, look, can I just speak a little bit further on this Durham report, right? Look,
by all means.
Look, I'm very, very concerned that law enforcement agencies, right up to the very top, and I'm not just talking one agency, I'm talking the intelligence agencies, which is the CIA, I'm talking the Premium Investigative Policing Agency, the FBI, as also the Department of Justice and so on. Now, one of the things that Durham has laid bare with all of this Russia stuff is that these people manufacture evidence. They manufacture or have manufactured evidence. They are capable of manufacturing evidence. They are capable of drawing in the corporate media and having the corporate media as part of this PSYOP. These people, right, law enforcement agencies have engaged beyond any dispute now. Durham has outed a lot of them. They engage in PSYOPs. Now, the American law enforcement are working cheek by jowl with the Australian law enforcement, with ASIO, our intelligence agencies, the Australian Federal Police, the Attorney General's Department and others, right? And they work cheek by jowl. Now, my concern is this, are the Australian law enforcement agencies capable of, orchestrating PSYOPs, right? PSYOPs. Are they capable of that? And are they also capable of political assassination, right? I emphasize political assassination, right? Are taking down anyone fabricating evidence and taking people down who are against the government, right? Against a corrupt government of any description, or more to the point, against Agenda 2030 United Nations, right? And the answer is yes. Now, if my conclusion is correct, that our law enforcement are well and truly capable of conducting PSYOPs, then I've got to start asking some serious questions about how people inside the freedom movement have been treated. I mean, it's no secret, all your audience knows, that we've got a freedom activist, whether you like him or not, doesn't matter, but we've got a freedom activist out there, Aussie Cossack, who's now spent months, 6 months or more in the
184 days, I think he's up to at the moment. So
Yeah, it's a
184
disgrace.
days. Hmm.
Yep, he's been, and we've all seen the footage. We've all seen the footage and what happened, right? So, we're all fully briefed. There's nothing to hide. But he's also spent months in jail for naming a bloody pedophile. So you've got to ask yourself the question: is this proper law and order at work, or is this law and order being weaponized against those people who are prepared to speak out against corrupt government, corrupt police, and corrupt institutions? Now, I'll also say, they're not the others. I mean, we've had Max Egan at one stage being lined up. They wanted to take him out and jail him. We've just seen Dave Oniggs, and I'm no friend of Dave Oniggs, and people know that. People know that. But was his prosecution a setup? Was there something behind all that? I know he pleaded guilty about it. But sometimes you're forced into saying guilty, whether you are or not, because the consequences that by pleading not guilty. I don't know any of these things, but I'm just simply saying that we have a lot of freedom activists, and you can take one right here, Como John, who was charged politically, went to the the Cleveland Magistrates Court, and convicted by a magistrate who ran out the court when I stood up to give my defence. Ran out the courtroom. I was not allowed to even, and who said publicly in front of a courtroom of people that Scott Morrison was a weak leader and that Australia had to get the United Nations in on the streets as quickly as possible. You get me? So,
John, you're still under the threat of going to jail.
3 months jail.
Yep, you're still under that threat.
Yeah, 3 months jail. I've got another.
On that basis.
Yeah, a 2-year good behaviour bond, and I've got about 2 months, 3 months, or whatever to go before. But if I, that's why I've got to be a bit careful, because at any time they can come along and say you've breached your good behaviour order bond, your good behaviour, and automatically I don't even go to court. They just lock me up for 3 months. I have a 3-month suspended jail sentence hanging over my head. And I've never asked for a cent. I've never asked for any help, unlike all these other weak pissants that are running around making a big circus of their court cases, have a sickie for Nicky and all this other bullshit. I just went in and knocked it over and handled it myself and didn't mention a word about it hardly. Ricardo Bosi was the only one that interviewed me, and that's the only public comment I've ever said about it. But there's a lot of freedom activists, mate, who have a weaponized law enforcement machinery being used against them to vilify them, to have them seek political, refuge, such as Aussie Cossack, others that have been in court, on charges that we don't know if they're politically motivated, like Oniggs and others. We don't know these things, but I don't trust our law enforcement one bit. Not one bit. They are well and truly capable of pulling psyops on the Australian people, just like the FBI, just like the CIA, just like the Department of Justice, and the rest of them. They're no good, mate. We have an infection, bad infection.
I have a question about the Oniggs thing. So he was convicted today, found guilty, but no conviction recorded. He was given, I believe, a small fine and told to go away. Now, he was convicted over funds raised for charity, not spent on the charity. I think it was something along those lines. And I find it intriguing that no conviction is recorded, no real punishment is awarded, and he's allowed to walk back out into the community and, as far as I'm aware, is pushing his next money-making scheme tonight. How is that happening in our courts? Usually you would find somebody on our side of the fence at least getting a 3-month suspended sentence. How's Oniggs not got one?
Well, they wanted to jail me for 2 years, mate, and I just got out of that by the skin of my teeth. But look, let me just say this about Oniggs. I don't know whether or not his prosecution was politically motivated or not. I don't know. I just don't know. I suspect that whichever way you look at it, a lot of politics, if you like, has been going on behind the scenes. But let me simply say this. When you hold public office, or when you have a public profile, big public profile, and he's got one of those, right? If an allegation is made against you that relates to money, right? Okay, it doesn't matter what the charge is, right? But if it's made against you and it involves money, mishandling money of any description, right? What you don't do, right, is you don't, while you're handling that, run off and start trying to engage yourself in another money collection scheme or another money making idea. You know what I mean? What you do is you withdraw from having anything to do with money until you clear your name and all that stuff, and it's all done, right? You know, but not Dave Onings. I mean, he's gone straight back in to further money making schemes. I don't know what they are, and I don't care. None of my business, right? None of my business. But the very fact that you're charged and you have a court case with, alleging, you know what I mean, mishandling of money, and then you go in and start, raising money, another scheme. I mean, I'm just saying, very risky, not a good look, and certainly does not bear any relationship to being a truther or a freedom fighter. Okay, it has no relationship at all.
No, I agree. Question without notice from the audience. Duckman wants to know your take on Bob Hawke. Really out of left field, that one. But I figure we've got you here, and you've certainly had a bit of dealings with him over the years.
Yeah, I've met Bob and on a couple on social occasions, and in a political environment on several occasions. And at the stage early in my career, I thought that Bob Hawke was one of the greatest public relations, greatest public speakers. I mean, everyone loved him. Everyone loved him, and I admired his skills. Okay, but later on in life, when you actually find out what he has been involved in, and he's and underneath all the lovely words and lovely likable bloke stuff, that he's actually been involved in some very bad things for our nation, and also against women and so on. My opinion of him now, I just think he's a disgrace, and I think his history needs to be rewritten to reflect his time on this earth, and the shit that he was into, and I hope he gets appropriately punished by God or whoever's up there dishing out the punishment, because he does need a good flogging. He does. No good.
Yeah. I worked in Canberra in the early mid-90s while he was Prime Minister still. And the Australian public at large believed that he was still a non-drinker. He'd given up the grog, but there was nothing of that, of course. He had his own room at the casino, back room. They'd take him out and drive him home from, and he'd be rotten most nights of the week. So
can I say this, Carl? Look, can I say this? Look, the person that I dearly loved was Bob's wife, Hazel Hawke. My family loved Hazel. We've met Hazel, and I love that woman. I thought she was a beautiful, beautiful human being, and she was far, far too good a woman to ever be married to that slug. But Hazel Hawke, I love that woman, and my mother, elderly mum, she loved Hazel. All of our family thought that Hazel was just a sweetheart, but Bob, different story.
I think the country took Hazel under their arm when the whole split happened. She was definitely the childhood sweetheart of the nation at that stage, and clearly the family rallied around her to protect her, and they left Bob to his own ways. Sadly, I did have one more interaction with Bob, only about maybe 10 months before he died, and that was at the Brisbane airport when I was a limo driver. He arrived and he thought I was their car, and he and Blanche came up looking for me, and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm not a com car. I'm not here for you." So she couldn't find one. She walked him outside, and turned out my flight had been delayed. So I walked out after them, maybe 5 minutes after them, and Bob was sitting by himself on a little chair thing out there with his head down having a smoke. and Blanche was walking around trying to find someone who'd go and pick him up. And I went over and sat beside him, and I said, "Hello, Mr. Hawke. My name's Carl Liebold. I'd just like to shake your hand to say, well, you're the first Prime Minister I've ever shook the hand of." And he looked at me and smiled, blew smoke in my face, shook my hand, and said, "Where does a bloke get a fucking beer?" That was the extent of our conversation. Where does a bloke get a fucking beer around here?
Well, he spoke our language. He spoke our language, mate. He spoke our language.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
John, I've been looking at some other things over the weekend. A lot of new information is starting to come out. I know we were predominantly going to focus on the Durham Report here, but I've been seeing a lot more news, a lot more awareness of adrenochrome and the meat business coming out in Australia. And as evidence for that, I want to show folks this. This is American adrenochrome meat. Now, what's in that bag is a baby's heart and a baby's kidney. I don't know how I can't tell that, but that's what this document says it is. Now, I want to play you something else, which I found today, equally as upsetting, I think. This, to me, is
so basically we've got a new brand called Humeat. Got it? Thank you. He's a cannibal, don't worry about him. No worries, bro. I want to taste. I eat human beings.
Yeah. Cut me. Okay, who is this? Who am I eating?
This was actually, this was Bob.
Bob the Builder.
Can we try this?
Can't we fix it?
Well, anyone wants to eat it.
Human donut? Oh, no.
Let me try to cut it for you.
It's not human meat, is it?
Read the pamphlet before you start.
I'll try some. Yes, we can.
I'll try some.
Yes, we can.
Is that what I think it is?
No, it's not.
Oh, no. You are full-on cannibals. Have a look at yours. I'm going to go.
I mean, there's a bit more of it. I think I'm just having a bit of a connection issue, but you get the idea. A guy set up a human meat taste test. Now, whether or not it was human meat, I don't know. But the simple fact of the matter was he was advertising the fact in a mall somewhere here in Australia that there was a human meat taste test. And you didn't see too many people upset about it. What did you hear? A whole heap of people squabbling about eating it, getting to and tasting it. John, that goes to show me that there is a level of interest in human meat consumption by our fellow Australians. That's concerning to me.
Well, they've been desensitised at least. That's the first thing, desensitised. And whether or not, they take the next step and they're actually pro human meat consumption, I suppose that they would be pro until it was their time to get eaten, right? Once it's their time, once it's their time to be cooked up. But look, we know those of us in the Truther movement who've done thousands and thousands of hours of research, mate. The whole body of research that's out there about adrenochrome, baby organs, baby parts being commercialised on an industrial scale, family planning and Planned Parenthood and these organisations. So we don't need any convincing anymore that we have a very, very sick population on our hands. Not just physically sick, and not just mentally, or not mentally, emotionally sick, but they're psychologically sick as well. Everyone knows that the whole thing with Kuru, K-U-R-U, the shaking disease that was caught. It was prolific in the highlands of New Guinea amongst the cannibals, where they eat infected human meat. And that's what Hillary Clinton had, Kuru. That's what Chancellor Merkel had, Kuru. That's why they've got all this shaking and uncontrollable laughing. They call it the laughing disease. We know that human meat, quite apart from all of the physical and medical and biological reasons not to do this, but it's spiritually, mate. Spiritually, it's just a wicked act. Cannibalism is a wicked act, and for these people not to have that safeguard, i.e., spiritual safeguard, there just to plough into it, well, they're fools, mate. They're easy pickings for Satanists. Easy pickings.
So, an interesting conversation to have around the table next time you've got a few friends around is, would you try human meat? If you knew it was human, would you try it? Do you have any interest? I'd be reevaluating my friendship following some of those answers if they were in the affirmative. Barbara's got it right, 100%. That is cannibalism. That is the definition of cannibalism.
That's right.
Yes, nobody's suggesting there was real human meat in those tests. But the fact of the matter was, people walked up and tried the meat thinking it was human meat. They were unafraid to taste it. What does that tell you? It should tell you a great deal. Also, speaking of things, misinformation and other shit being put out, I did find an interesting one coming out of the Ukraine. Russia apparently has attacked Ukraine with chemical weapons. Okay? Watch what you're like. Be aware of what they're filming to show you on mainstream media, folks. You're going to see that bloke go, oh, chemical attack. You know, the Russians have hit us. The Russians have hit us. Just remember, the cameraman is sitting there filming it happily, not wearing any kind of chemical suit, nothing. Face exposed, the whole thing. It is lies, folks. Absolute lies. Theatre. It is theatre. And how many times do we have to find this shit to prove it to others? And I know there'll be plenty of cookers watching tonight who won't engage on that one, though, because how do you engage on that? All right?
Yeah,
they won't engage on the ones that are really easy. But,
Carl, I've said this publicly. I've said that, look, what we have at the moment, and it's like very difficult to deal with this, but you have two different realities out there in Australia and in the world, but in Australia at the moment, two different realities. There's our reality, which is based on research. It's based on facts. It's based on truth. It's based on, a whole lot of hard work, blood, sweat and tears. And then you've got a different reality, which the normies have, right? And the normies have got a full diet of psyops, lies, and corporate media propaganda, and basically their reality bears no truth, no relationship to the real state of the world. Now, these psyops, I mentioned them before, they are bad enough when you get terrorists that use them, right? Genuine terrorists like they did over in Aleppo and other places over there. They had green screens and they were going to cut this guy's throat, and it was all a psyop, all bullshit. That's bad enough. But when you have government agencies, right, participating in these psyops, and it gets worse, when you have government agencies that have access to Hollywood style, Hollywood standard psyops, their machinery, what they're able to do, right, it becomes very scary. Now, we know that Obama changed the law. There was an act in America that the government no one was able to run a psyop of lies against the American people, propaganda. You weren't allowed to. Well, then Obama changed that law so that could be allowed. And now what we are seeing is ordinary people who are getting hit every day, day in, day out with bloody psyops and lies, right? Now, it's hard enough for us to deal with it because it wears us down. We can see the amount of bullshit that's thrown around. It's unstoppable, this bullshit, right? But to a normie out there that doesn't have our skills or our patience to research and to look through all this stuff, right, they're just getting hit left, right, and centre. And so, it's easy to understand that they are living in a fabricated reality. It's very easy for me to understand that, and very hard to sort of get them out of that. You know,
Mhm.
like I said, The Matrix was a documentary, mate. It was not an entertainment film. It was a documentary.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
J1 brings up an interesting comment here. The veggie garden is going to be in a criminal offence soon.
yeah,
We are seeing all sorts of overreach, particularly with government in Victoria and other states. Now, Western Australia introducing on the 1st of July their new Indigenous Land Act, which means that any farmer who wants to dig deeper than 50 millimetres into the soil has to negotiate a permit with the Indigenous landholders. That's going to go down real well because you would only be able to negotiate based on what you were going to plant in that ground. And if that happened to be, I don't know, 35 million tonne of wheat, you would expect that would be a fairly expensive chunk coming out of what you might get out of your normal profit out of making something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
This is madness, John. Is it? What do we do about it? How do we change it? Is it a matter of, well, we've got to get the right people into government? How do we do this? Have we just got to wait until Trump takes over the world?
Look. Let me say this. The first thing is this, right? It's not madness. It's not craziness. Nothing is broken, right? They are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, right? And they are doing it exceedingly well. Now, what are they trying to do? They are trying to kill us, right? They're trying to kill us, right? Murder us, and they're trying to enslave us. Pretty simple to understand, right? Now, for all the other nonsense that goes on in the freedom movement and inside of the truther movement and all the rest of it, right? I'd like to just get down to the bare bones and know what I'm dealing with. We are dealing with mass murdering psychopaths and who are armed to the teeth with lots and lots of tools, right? And one of the tools, I mean, they own our health system, our medical, right? So they own all of that, big pharma, government, doctors, all that stuff. So all of that utterly corrupt and dangerous regime, they own that. Well, now they've had their fun with the vaccines. They've killed a lot of people, right? We now know that. Well, now they're moving on to food, right? They want to kill more of us, right? But using food. Now, there'll be two things that will happen. Is they will take all of our prime food sources, good food, right, and they will restrict it and eliminate it if they've got to, and then they will force us into a different food chain of which is tainted and which serves no nutritional purpose.
None.
And that will be a nice, slow, agonising death for us as well. Right, we know that because they're poisoning our water, fluoride and other chemicals. They're poisoning our air with chem sprays and so on. They're poisoning our food. I mean, you know, we now know all of this chemical cocktails and liners in tins and chemical agents and colorings and all this shit, mate. It never ends. So we've just got to stop all this debate and nonsense and you know about and own up to this one hard truth. They're trying to kill us, right? That's it.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? They're trying to kill us. Is it serious? Yes, it is. They're trying to kill us, right? How do we know? Go and look at the evidence, mate. There's so much out there now. You'd have to be a complete emu to disregard it, right? So we know that. But when you go into the truther movement and into the freedom movement, what is their solution? Well, one, they keep trying to reform things. They keep trying to fix things. They keep trying to put Band-Aid on things. No, that's not the way to view this, mate. We are dealing with murderers here. We are dealing with psychopaths. And there's only one way you can deal with them, and that is to defeat them utterly defeat them. No deals, no quarter given, no accommodation, nothing. You defeat them, and then you wipe them off the face of the earth, or you lock them up so they never see daylight again. That's what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
Now, come to that conclusion. There is only two outcomes they want. They want less of us on the planet, and two, what's left, they want to utterly enslave us. That's it, right? Now, there's lots of other, things on their agenda all over the place. But in essence, when you boil it all down, that's what their plans are. And I say to the freedom movement and to all of the protest movement and all the bloody truth movement, just shut the fuck up and get on with it, mate. Get on with it, right? And get serious and stop all your bullshitting around and really start taking on. And like, we still we've not named our enemy. We still, in the freedom movement and the truth movement, we still to this day, there's only been two people that I'm aware of besides you and I, Kyle, and that's Ricardo Bossi and that's Simeon, right, the Aussie Cossack, who have outright used all their time, all their resource, all their audience to call the enemy out. It's the Khazarian mafia. They've infiltrated the entire world. They hide under the cover of being Jewish, right? They ain't Jewish. These people are monsters, mate. They are monsters, and they're behind nearly every single conflict in the world. And, world war conflicts, they're behind it. Their central banking has enslaved the planet for well over 100 years, right? And it's time to call out the enemy, who they are, and then, deal with them, fix them up, get them away, and take it all off them. Now, I can tell you now, to do that, it's going to take a military effort, and that's what President Trump is leading, but he can't do it on his own. He just can't, and the military can't. They need us. They need us in there to do our part, to play our part. And the more these pissant freedom fighters and pissant truthers who are not taking the bull by the horns, they're just piss-assing around, right? The sooner they shut the fuck up and get right on to the main issue, the quicker we can educate, bring everyone together and join arms and knock this mob over. We don't have to like each other. We don't have to hang around with each other after, but we do have a common enemy that's got to be outright defeated. Full stop. Full stop. Now, we've 100%. Seen the Khazarian mafia. They say the Khazarian mafia, communism is their law and order, central banking is their finances. They've got these tools, and they've been using us to control us for 100 years or more. This is an old war, Carl. This war is an old war that goes back hundreds of years, whether your audience understands that or not. And the type of war it is, it's a fifth generational war. Okay, this is a war for your mind, and it's a war for your soul. It's a spiritual war. So tool up and get into it, everyone. I mean, it's ours for the taking, not theirs. It's ours.
Just quickly, over the weekend, I started hearing a little bit of news that the RV has begun. The revaluation or the global financial reset has begun. Apparently began on the 6th of June. Tier 1 countries or entities were funded, if you like, and tier 2, 3, and 4 entities will be funded by the end of June. Do we think that this will mean our rainbow currency sometime July, August, September? Although I'm also hearing that the rainbow currency won't be sent out until January of next year. Have you heard anything?
Look, I just refuse to get involved in any of the chatter, right, about the reset, the financial reset I'm talking specifically, right? I just say this, right? Look, this is what we know, right? Beyond any debate, we know because we can see it before our eyes that the existing central bank system, right, is collapsing. We can see that it is being all of the fiat currencies, US dollar, Aussie dollar, British pound, all of them are being spent into oblivion. We can see that the world is carrying so much debt that it's never going to get repaid. Never. None of it's going to get repaid. So we can see all of this. But we can also see that in 2020, President Trump, through the use of his executive order, where he gave 12 months notice the year before, and then after 12 months, he wrote an executive order, and he took the United States Federal Reserve Bank, which is not a reserve bank and it holds no money, but it's a bloodline family printing presses for free money. But he's taken them off the the privateers, the central bankers, and brought it back under United States Treasury, who at the time had a Treasury Secretary called Steve Mnuchin. Right, so we know all this. So we know the existing system is going to go. It's finished, and it hasn't got much life on it, right, in it. Right, so we know that, and we also know that the key players behind the scenes have been working furiously to develop and put in place, to flick the switch, to put in place a new system which is going to be to the benefit of humanity and to the benefit of all those people in business and so on, right? Cross-border payments and so on. Now, exactly how they're going to roll that out, look, it's a lot of hard work you've got to put in, and you don't get big returns because you've got to sift through so many breadcrumbs to get a bit of an idea of how they're going to play these cards, and the information you end up getting is not that great anyway. So the way I prefer to look at it is this: I know for dead certain the existing fiat dollar system, all of it is collapsing. I know it is, and I know it's not going to be around for much longer. Is it going to be around in a month or 6 months? I don't know, but I'll tell you what, it hasn't got much life left in it. That's the first thing. 2, are they going to allow the existing system to collapse without having a replacement system ready for it? Because if they don't, you're going to look at multiple millions of people who will die. The moment there is no means of transaction, the moment you have no means of transaction, it means food, medicine, energy, none of this can be bought and sold. You just can't buy and sold. And no food, no energy, no medicines, and those things means death and destruction. So they have to have a replacement system. Now, I've seen enough evidence to say that they've got a quantum financial system. They've got it out there. So I know that's what they have, right? So I've seen it. But exactly how they're going to play these cards out, Carl, and the timing of these cards, I don't know.
No, God, we'd be rich men if we could actually give dates out, wouldn't we? But
absolutely.
Yeah, well, we can't have everything, I guess. But I feel in my water we are a lot closer to the end of this than we are to the beginning. Whether or not that means we've only got another 750 years to wait for this to happen or not, I don't know. But I get the feeling
the crazier it gets out there, and on all sorts of things, you're going to see some complete madness. But the crazier it gets out there, the closer we are to this all coming to a head, and a lot of people going to be locked up and tried and dealt with by military. Right. So we know this. I mean, again, this is not wishful thinking, Carl, but through the great research of people like Derek Johnson, who has now been supported by many other researchers, right? We are now very confident that there is a military, not an exercise, but a military intervention into American affairs and global affairs, right? And so there is a military intervention taking place. We know that. Again, how are they going to play all that out? No one's quite sure. But it's happening, Carl. It's happening.
Yep, I agree. I'm seeing an awful lot of transport movements. Now, people know who've been watching the show regularly that I have a bunch of guys who follow flights around Australia, and they have been particularly closely monitoring what we call low-level flights, anywhere between 9,000 and 15,000 feet. They fly in a box, and they're mapping a certain area, or they're surveying a certain area, or they're spraying a certain area. We don't know at the end of the day exactly what they're doing. We are getting more and more information to us from overseas, in that it seems that we are not the only country getting this low-level mapping or surveying happening. And I was watching Monkeyworks debrief the other day, where he was showing quite a number of flights around the US that are doing the same thing. He puts it down to either battle damage. They're looking for collapsed tunnels. They're doing deep ground penetration radar kind of stuff from the air, trying to do battle damage assessment of tunnels or God knows whatever else is down underneath those certain areas. Now, could that be what's happening here in Australia? Maybe so. I don't know. The best or most recent information we have is that Guam is a point of great interest at the moment. Australia has been sending a number of military flights to Guam. Interestingly, the Americans have been sending a huge amount of civilian 737s to Guam, rather than sending direct military aircraft, I suppose. Now, Guam, of course, is an American military island. It's where the B-2s are based. There are B-1 Bones based at Guam as well, but predominantly the B-2 bomber flies out of Guam. I think the Yanks have only got 35 of them. I think 15 or 16 of them are located in Guam, and they're the ones that come to Australia quite regularly. Guam is a military island, and those who aren't in the military on the island are there to work for the military, to service the military needs. There is precious other little reason to be there. And yet, Australia is now sending transports there, and America are sending 4, 5, 6 a day flights into Guam. Could that be another one of our detention centres? Could it be another court martial site or trial site? I don't know. Maybe Gitmo's full up. I've been told that anybody who has been a subject of rendition in Australia is most likely at Guam, unless they are a very, very big committer of very big crimes, in which case they'll be at Gitmo. So people, if you're interested, keep an eye on Guam. Get on your flight radars and all that sort of stuff and watch Guam. Watch the flights coming into and out of Guam. A lot of them coming to Australia, interestingly enough.
Look, without having any expertise in the airline industry and not having a military background, I can't offer any specifics. But what I can say is this. Look, I think that Monkey Works is amongst the best when it comes to gleaning information and then analysing that information. I think he's a very, very skillful guy, and I would listen closely to his reporting on this matter with close interest, right? All those things that you've rolled out, is it being used for this purpose or that purpose? We don't quite know yet, but every day there's more and more breadcrumbs falling off the table, and we are picking those breadcrumbs up and baking them into a complete picture. And again, 5 years ago we were pretty lousy at it, but we're pretty good now, Carl. I mean, all of us doing this work now have had a lot of experience at making mistakes and getting things wrong. And but now we're actually pretty good at it now. And so, Monkey Works, good source, good intel. Your assessment on what Guam may well be bloody right. And I hope so. I hope they're flying them up there by the plane load, the criminals. And I hope they never see the light of day again.
Yep, me too. John, thank you very much. I'll let you go off and enjoy your dinner. And thanks for joining us again tonight, mate. And we'll catch up again very shortly for another chat, I'm sure. And thanks for your insights sharing tonight. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Carl. Thanks for the invite, and good evening to all your listeners down there. Talk again soon. Mate.
Thanks, brother. John Wilson, the pirate himself. Always great to have on the show, and just a brilliant bloke with some marvelous insights for us all. I just want to thank everybody who's donated tonight to the show. None2K must be up working again because it's the only one you can donate on. So thank you to Sunflower. I appreciate your efforts and every time, and thank you for encouraging others. I really appreciate it. And to Barbara, thank you for yours, and Blue Balls for your $20, and J-Man, thank you very much for your sticker, and Sandy too. I think you put something in too. So thank you very much. Love you all. It is very difficult at the moment. Times are very tough. Happy enough to show you that I am not Monica Schmidt. I do not have a bank account that allows me to travel around the world and ask you for money. Did you see that thing from Monica Schmidt? I mean, seriously. 2 weeks ago, she was telling people that if they wanted to, they could leave money to her in their will money to her. And then she gets on a plane and goes to Paris and is walking around Paris, sees a Perusian graveyard, and then goes in and proceeds to rewrite history, telling us how the French fought the communists. Monica. I think the Aussie Cossack is going to eat you alive. You need to understand history before you go and make live conversations or live broadcasts like that one, and potentially not do them from Paris a week after you've asked everybody to send you money. What are you doing in Paris? How are you helping us in Paris? I hope you're enjoying yourself. I'm sure it'll be lovely. But what are you doing in Paris? Who paid for that? I got $1.76 in my bank account. I'm not going to Paris, but I'll be here fighting for you guys. Don't worry about that. I'm just disgusted that there are people in this movement who can get on here one day and beg you for money to a point where they say, leave it to us in your will, and then get on a plane and go to Europe for a holiday. Tell you what, if you're still donating to her, you're an idiot. That'd be what I'd be saying. But yeah, just disgusted. All right, folks. There's a lot more I want to say, but I'll get myself into too much trouble. Let me just have a bit of a glance down now. I did have a few things I was going to bring up once John departed, but I reckon I'll probably talk through most of it all tonight. The only thing I have not done so far, and it would be extremely remiss of me not to do, is to wish Aussie Sue a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Aussie Sue. Happy birthday to you. All together now. Happy birthday to you. I'll shut up now. Happy birthday. Hope you're having a bloody great day. You're having a couple of coldies out on the deck I saw earlier. So love your work. Thank you very much for your support too. And I hope you're having a lovely, lovely, lovely evening of it. What have I heard about here? Somebody, Neil, what have you asked me? Carl, have you heard about military exercises in Midge Point and Bowen? As far as I'm aware, military exercises are happening all over the country right now with other countries. In fact, I believe there are 22 different countries currently in Australia at the moment operating on a exercise basis. It's bullshit. Australians have been on exercise since February this year, and we were told it would last. No, sorry, from December last year. And we were told it would last until December of this year. Now, exercises do not last a year. That is an operation. That's a big difference in military terminology, a big difference. They do not make slip-ups like that. Exercises run for a couple of weeks. So they have told you that, no need to worry. You'll see us exercising for the next 12 months. When have you ever heard or had that warning before that the Army, Navy, and Air Force will be exercising in locations near you for 12 months? If you see them, don't be worried. Don't be alarmed. Don't be frightened. They're just doing the right thing. Of course, we go back and remember the videos that came out of Jervis Bay with the Army walking around, setting up road blocks and doing car searches and all that sort of thing. Admittedly, you didn't have to participate if you didn't want to have your car searched, but yeah, also an awful lot of American and Australian Navy going in and out of Jervis Bay, the odd submarine. I kid you not, quite a few of them, in fact. So, yeah, no fun at all. Oh, it's great to see so many people wishing Aussie Sue a birthday wish. That is tremendous. And it's great. Love to have you folks in my show, part of the show, and chatting. It's great that we've got such a wonderful family. There's a couple of thousand people watching at the moment on various different channels. So to each and every one of you, thank you very much for your support and continued support going forward and advice going forward. Thank you. I get so many emails with people every day giving me advice, giving me story ideas, giving me directions to follow. So without you, I couldn't do half of what I do. And then without you, I couldn't do the other half. So let's face it, without you, I can't do much. thank you very much for deciding to support us. If you decide to support us, you can go to the website, vofhq.com, and hit the donate button. Or if you would like the chance to win yourself a 10-ounce silver bar or maybe a 1-ounce silver coin, you can become a member. Write a limerick by June 30, and by the end of the first week of July, you may have won yourself a 10-ounce bar of silver coin. All thanks to Ainsley Bullion and Freedom Financial Solutions, Cass and the crew there. So if you haven't done it yet, get your limericks in. There are quite a few. I'm going to go through them. I was going through over the weekend, and I was going to do a couple of them tonight, but the subject matter was a bit heavy for that. So I will get to a couple of them that have been put in over the last few days and read them out in the next day or two, just to give you an idea. Maybe get you thinking on how you can write one of your own. But I would love to see your limerick. And I would even love more to give you a 10-ounce silver bar, thanks to Ainsley Bullion. How easy is that? Shari, I'm not a legend. I'm just a short, fat fella who can talk a lot. That's about as good as I get, I'm afraid. All right, folks, I'm going to love you and leave you for tonight. There is one more thing I want to touch on. And you know how I normally end this show. We have some wonderful friends down in the Hunter Valley. People who have loved us from the moment that we came into your lives and you came into ours. What's happened down in the Hunter in the last 24 hours is a tragedy of enormous proportions. Impacts the lives of so many people, not the least of which the happy couple on their wedding day. I just want everybody in the Hunter Valley to know that my thoughts, my daughter's thoughts, Laura, are with you all. It is a terrible time. We know what a tight-knit community Singleton is, and that a lot of the people affected in this tragedy come from Singleton. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there are people who have been infected or killed in this that we probably know and just haven't got the details yet. So I just want to let you know, folks, if you're down in the Hunter Valley, that we're thinking of you. We love you. It's an awful thing that you're going through. And to friends and family of those people who've been so deeply affected by this horrible tragedy, I just want you to know we're thinking of you. We're here for you. If we can help, we'll come and help. Whatever you need, just call.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!